Ant versus Luca on the second screen. Check.
OTAs are well underway. Who's in, who's out, and what's changing on offense? Let's talk about it.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome into a live edition of the KC Laboratory, presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our incredible partners in Possible here at KCSN. I am thrilled to be with my friends today. My beautiful, lovely friends, Craig Stout and Maddie Lane. Matthew, hi, hello, how are we?
You know, we're doing good. We're doing good. We got OTAs started. We're seeing all the awesome, cool videos, all the big highlights from what Chiefs players are able to do out there on the field against air in their shorts and helmets. Can't forget the helmets for, well, most of the players. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. But, I mean, this is the small surge of before the offseason really gets real dead. We get to start hearing a little bit about some young guys now. So it's kind of an exciting time as we head into the real dead months here coming up at the for June and July.
Yeah, I see a lot of people that are like, oh, it's just against air. What are we doing here? This is the last football you're going to have for a little while. It's going to be barren, and hopefully the news cycle is also barren, but this is what you're getting for the next little while. We're getting a sneak peek into what the Chiefs have done, what they've built, the new pieces. We got pressers today. This is the last little surge, like Maddie said, before we move on into the next realm of dead period during the offseason. So embrace it, enjoy it. I know that I certainly am.
Yeah, I've been breaking down all the photos, the 88 photos released from OTAs. Since I've been alive, all I can remember is every 10 photos, an ad popping up on the Chiefs website. You can't get through more than 10 without them going, oh, look at our Super Bowl merch. Here we are. But I'm always trying to pay attention.
How many Super Bowl shirts did you buy today? Flipping through the pictures, though.
I'd buy one if they would just let me go ad-free for the rest of my life on the site. I'm not really a big merch guy. I gotta admit it. Not a huge merch guy, so I don't really buy a ton of stuff very often. But yeah. Anyways, we are excited to be here. Obviously, we get some glimpses of some players. You get some glimpses of some commentary from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Trent McDuffie. But we'll start with this. Some players active on the field today. Good to see Brian Cook moving around. Mm-hmm. Good to see Rashee Rice in Kansas City, away from the state of Texas. That was good to see those guys out on the field a little bit today, Matthew.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just even starting with Rashee Rice, yes, he is there. I know that was for, a bigger story early in the week for some reason, but he was there. Patrick Mahomes had to get up on, the podium today and had to answer for Rashee Rice and what he had going on. I think it was just very, same thing with, like you just said, getting him away from Texas. Mahomes was just kind of like, hey, we're trying to get him to learn from what's happened. And, we can dig into that a little bit later. I don't know if that's what you want to hear necessarily, is you're trying to get a young person to learn from the mistakes that they keep making. Maybe we should get past the trying aspect and we could just be learning from it now, but that's neither here nor there. I think the big thing was you have guys that are getting back together, people that are getting back into something that is more consistent with what they're going to be doing in the regular season. You always hear Andy Reid or veterans talk about this. Travis Kelce on the New Heights podcast talks about this all the time, that he likes doing these kind of things. He likes going to training camp because it puts you in with the team doing football. The main thing that you are doing is football. It's no longer an accessory. It's no longer preparing for the season. Like, they treat OTAs as this is part of the season. This is part of what we are doing because we are all here with one focused goal. I think that's an important thing. I think Andy Reid does a great job getting that across the players, and you hear that when these players and everybody gets up onto the podium.
Yeah, obviously Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes got asked a ton of questions about Rashee Rice, Harrison Butker, and the general consensus that they kept saying is, it's really good to be back here. It's really good to be back in the locker room. It's really good to be back in the controlled environment where we can have these conversations with these players, not in the public eye, not on social media. We get to just keep things internal, and that's what they like to do. That's what they want to do. It was good to see that Rashee Rice was back. It's even better to see that Brian Cook was back on the field. We have not gotten very many updates on Brian Cook since the injury, to the point where I started to wonder, is this bigger, more problematic than maybe we, are expecting here? Obviously, they don't have to update once you put them on IR. There doesn't have to be any updates. The team was obviously way more focused on going out and winning a Super Bowl, and so reporters were not asking about Brian Cook because he wasn't in the building. And why do so? But Trent McDuffie got to speak on that a little bit. He said, he's cutting, he's planting, he's able to move. It was really good to have him out there on the field as well. Trent, one of the 3 guys that made it on the Chiefs public presser. Nick Bolton was on the KCTV5 presser, but he was one of the 3 guys, and that was also good to see. Trent McDuffie is the guy that they want to step into that role as the DB coach, the guy on the field that's kind of calling stuff, able to direct traffic a little bit more. He was able to talk about that a little bit more as well. But one of the things that he really stressed was it was really good to have Brian Cook back there on the field, since a lot of these young guys, with L'Jarius Sneed's absence now, are having to bring these other young guys up into been there for 3 years. They're ready to take hold of this. This is their time to shine at this point in their rookie contracts. And he kept referencing Brian Cook as another guy that's helping him to try and impart that knowledge of year 3 in Spags' scheme to some of these guys that maybe don't have the same level of experience or play time. He made it a lot easier for Trent, it sounds like, over the past couple of days.
Yeah, hearing them talk about, hearing Trent McDuffie talk about the chemistry with Brian Cook, and just how they were able to play off each other, and maybe the communication, everything wasn't as crisp, with a play here or there, but they were just so comfortable with each other. They were able to play off each other a little bit there. So that's always really good to see, is that kind of chemistry. And that chemistry in the back 7 was really important in this team's success last season, obviously with L'Jarius Sneed being in the mix as well, an elite player. But there's still a lot of good things in that back end and in the secondary. So and good chemistry and a lot of good football players, a lot of depth and a lot of versatility to that group. Xavier Worthy did miss. It sounds like he's, he tweaked a little bit of a hamstring issue. Also not in OTAs for the final day, at least. Chris Jones, Travis Kelce. However, there were pictures of Travis Kelce on the Chiefs website in between the 10 photo ad breaks. There was photos of him earlier in the OTA being part of it. So sounds like, maybe he got in here, got some work, and maybe got a veteran rest day, considering he's my age. Nothing to be concerned about, I think, with the injuries, but obviously you would like to see Xavier Worthy getting involved, any chance he gets with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you would hope he's there. It was, a hamstring. It didn't sound like it was going to be anything serious. He was out there with everybody else, not his helmet on. Worthy, that is. So we'll see, how the next couple days of OTAs, when they get to them, we'll see what happens. And if he's able to go, then it would be really nice to start to see him out there, even if these are, just 10 pictures before an ad break or random social media clips that are getting thrown out there from the social team, at 7:30 p.m., well after the practice is over. It'll be nice to see him get out there. I think the biggest one, Chris Jones isn't there. Or at least wasn't there for this chunk. It's all, voluntary. It's not that big of a deal or anything. I will say though, a little notable, Kadarius Toney not there. That one's a little interesting. Just because why not? I mean, why not?
Especially since he's been training with the team. He's been at Camp Mahomes down in Texas. Maybe you just had something else that was going on. We don't want to, jump to any conclusions here, but I found that a little bit interesting as well. Worthy really, not being able to play here. I know that there was some concern. I saw some concern on Twitter. Oh no, the tiny receiver is hurt already. Oh no. Patrick Mahomes even said it's like he'd be playing today if we were in a game. This is an abundance of caution sort of deal. And while that doesn't necessarily assuage all the fears or anything, it definitely, hey, guys get knocks all the time. At this stage in everything, you take a step back. The thing that they keep saying about Xavier Worthy, who got to participate in some OTAs, it's not like he missed all of them. They got to participate in some OTAs because the concern amongst some of the people that were in the room asking questions at these pressers is, how's he going to come up to speed? How's he going to build that chemistry with Patrick? And both Andy and Patrick, you can just kind of see the little smirk across their face and a little chuckle. It's like, he's a really smart guy. You can tell we're not worried about him. Like he's picking everything up. We are unfazed by the fact that he had to miss a day or a day and a half or whatever it was with this hamstring knock. He's got this. He's got this a lot more than you guys realize. So I found that really interesting. That's kind of the little bit of a peek that we get to see of the real kind of reactions from a Patrick Mahomes or an Andy Reid when asked about Xavier Worthy. So I'm not concerned about it. Obviously, you want him to be healthy. You want him to be out there. You want him to be participating as much as possible. But he's been down there with Patrick. Like, he's been putting in the work since he got drafted. I imagine he's going to continue to go down and continue the work after some of these dead periods here. So the chemistry is still going to build, but it's good to hear that intelligence, that ability to produce on the field and clicking with the rest of the offense is continuing even when the veterans show up.
I was interested in Mahomes' comments, kind of first off, just talking like a seasoned vet, which is a little bit weird, just because, I mean, like 3 rings, 7 years, but just 28-year-old talking with the kind of veteran, experience that he has is just kind of interesting. But making comments about, sometimes when, you get to these situations in OTAs, the young guys, really want to go out and try to, show what they can do. And maybe they get a little overzealous kind of, and maybe stretch themselves a little bit too far. And, just kind of making an open-ended commentary kind of about that. I thought that was just kind of interesting is, they're a little excited to be catching balls from Patrick Mahomes and probably excited to be catching balls down the field. That's one of the things that I really wanted to make sure we talked about today is, this group, you heard some of the commentary about, that Patrick Mahomes was making about, chucking the ball down the field a little bit. He said, we've mastered the short to intermediate. We want to get back to throwing the ball down the field. He's got a perfect group of players to try to throw the ball down the field, one being Xavier Worthy, the other being Hollywood Brown. And, that group is a interesting vertical stretch pairing. Sounds like they're really intent on getting that ball down the field this year, Matthew.
Yeah, I think it's been a big, I guess, misconception of what the Chiefs offense was the past, like last year before. Like, everybody's talking about how they're trying to push the ball downfield and all you have to do is keep everything in front, make them drive the length of the field, and they will eventually kind of like just crack. And that's how teams are playing them. They're afraid to get beat deep. That's not what happened last year. Teams weren't afraid to get beat deep by the Chiefs last year. They were actively begging them to try to throw the ball downfield because they were terrible at it. This wasn't 2022 anymore where the Chiefs were an elite, but one of the best teams ever throwing short to intermediate because everybody was playing shell coverage and letting Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster go to town while he was healthy. Teams learned and they played him differently and the Chiefs struggled. So while everybody's sitting here talking about how the Chiefs need to get this next possession receiver or another guy to win like shallow and over the middle of the field, Andy Reid sits there and looks at it and goes, you're going to play that much single high coverage? You're going to play that much man coverage? Okay, let me just go get Hollywood Brown. Let me just go get Xavier Worthy. And now, if you still want to play that way, good luck running with these guys that we think are going to outrun you. They can actually track the ball. They can be these vertical wide receivers that MVS was 2 years ago, but not the year before. That Tyreek Hill was, but really nobody else was that kind of player with Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. So I think you're going to see the Chiefs not only are just adding players that can win downfield, but I think they're going to kind of try to take advantage of the way teams were playing them last year, which was challenging them to throw the ball deep. And then if you do want to shift, it's like, okay, we have to defend against this speed. Well, now you still have Rashee Rice. When he's not suspended, you still have Travis Kelce. Hollywood Brown's actually really good at winning versus zone on the short to intermediate areas. So like they have multiple things they can do. I just think there is very much going to be an intention on trying to push the ball downfield to some of these better vertical receivers than they have had the past 2-3 years.
Patrick said it. Andy wants us to throw deep. He keeps encouraging us to throw deep. He even used the word, we've mastered the shallow and intermediate area. Like, he used the word mastered, which anybody watching the offense last year, he said they've mastered that, want to go deep. It is no coincidence that one of the first things that comes out is the Chiefs tweeting a deep ball to Hollywood Brown. Of course, they want to show that off. Yes, it's against air. Yes, there's nobody running with him, but that's what they want to show. They want everybody to play too high against them. They want all of this to be in every defensive coordinator's brain throughout the entire season. They want teams to be terrified of getting beat deep. Trent McDuffie even referenced this a little bit. Now, I know that they really played up the wide receiver room last year at this point, and even sold it into training camp and all of this. Trent McDuffie even admitted, it's like, yeah, at this point last year, we were beating them. Like the defense had them. Like we were the superior unit last year at this point in the season. This year, we're really having a fight. Now, maybe that's an indicator that the defense is taking a step back. It is what it is, but they have definitely added more to the offense. They have definitely stressed the fact that they want to get vertical, that they want to throw deep. Trent McDuffie mentioned how hard that is to do. Patrick Mahomes razzing Drew Tranquil a little bit, talking a little bit of trash and being like, hey, you're going to go and cover him? You're going to go try and top that route? No, you're not. So there's a lot of stuff like that. Even Jared Wiley referenced again, getting a little bit vertical. They want to throw the ball down the field. They are tired of teams sitting on everything. They are tired of Kyle Hamilton being able to take a step forward at the snap in the AFC Championship game every single play because they weren't scared of anybody beating them deep. Every highlight, I promise you, every highlight that you are going to see that's a big highlight that gets any sort of traction out of the Chiefs all offseason, it's just going to be deep balls to Xavier Worthy, deep balls to Hollywood Brown, deep balls to Jared White. It's just going to be that over and over and over again. The Chiefs want the rest of the league to know, we figured out how to do this again. Good luck.
But why would the Chiefs want the rest of the league to know?
Because they want them to play too high, and then they can have Travis Kelce.
No, I think it's just I was just gonna say this isn't a surprise at all. Look at the two players they brought in. It was Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. So no defensive coordinator worth their salt could be like, you know what? They're probably gonna run Xavier Worthy on option routes over the middle of the field.
Probably gonna be a 50-50 run pass split. Definitely. Yeah.
So it's not that I don't think it's as much that there's no element of surprise. It's not going to be like week one where, of the Patrick Mahomes era against the Chargers where it's like, oh, all of a sudden they're just chucking the ball down the field. Oh, wow. What a surprise. No, they've got the personnel. This is the kind of personnel that you can kind of do that with. This is a team that is going to terrify teams vertically again. And it's going to open things up for Travis Kelce, probably prolong his career a little bit, getting some help, to kind of clear up the intermediate and short. And Rashee Rice, we've spent so much time talking about Rashee Rice not being on the field that I think we kind of forget Rashee Rice on the field with a Travis Kelce, with a Hollywood Brown, with a Xavier Worthy is an infinitely better group of pass catchers than we saw this team have last year, to the point that they can go back to being an elite, terrifying offense, even if the defense does take a step back. That full version of what this team is envisioning on offense is a versatile, explosive potential offense, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing them get the ball back down the field. So
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that the whole concept, they've won 2 Super Bowls by just taking what was available to them. But we saw as the year went on, the personnel was an issue. Their own mistakes were issues. But I think teams were giving them less. You could no longer run out there if you were Mahomes and Andy Reid and preach, just take what the defense is giving you, because defenses weren't giving you the easy stuff. That's what was gone last year. The easy stuff was gone. So they have to find a way to either take what's now being given to them, which is stuff down the field, or they have to force defenses to go back to giving stuff up over the middle of the field. Have to go back and force defenses to leave soft spots over the middle of the field for Rice and for Kelce. I 100% think that that's their preferred method. They would much rather you go play too high and be terrified of the speed they can put out there. But they want to be able to also go out there and be like, oh, you're not going to do that? That's fine. Now we feel comfortable actually attacking you, rather than throwing YOLO balls to Justin Watson or just hoping that MVS isn't going to trip over himself while trying to adjust to a football downfield. And it's not trying to take knocks or shots at anybody. It's just that was what they were having to do last year when they pushed the ball downfield. Go back to the Miami game in the playoffs. that game could have been a bigger blowout than it was if they had a wide receiver who could track the ball downfield because, they were getting behind the defense repeatedly and they just couldn't convert. So I think it's kind of a 2-point thing. They want to be able to get the ball downfield, but more so they want to be able to stretch defenses vertically so that they opens up stuff for the two guys that are their known playmakers. Now, before we move on, before Kent comes in here and gets us into a break immediately and stuff like that, I did want to go back.
Matty, I would like to interrupt you. Do you have something to say about Trent McDuffie?
Oh my God. Thank you for asking me, Craig. This is great of you. I really appreciate you asking me if I had something to say about Trent McDuffie. I think the deep ball comment from Patrick Mahomes was the most important thing from the pressers. Like if I were to pick out one thing, but number two, it's the fact that Trent McDuffie was doing the pressers. He was the guy that they decided to put up there. Like, I get it. Nick Bolton was on the KC TV 5 one. So you can also say Nick Bolton was, and we know Nick Bolton's a leader and Chris Jones isn't there. So he's not going to be the guy, but still Trent McDuffie was chosen over, a Justin Reed. He was chosen over even a Brian Cook, any other player that was available. They chose Trent McDuffie to be the other player they put up there. I kind of think that matters. This is the first day, but this is the opening day of press conferences. This is the guy you would hear from defensively if things go right and you get to the playoffs. This is the guy you hear from if you get to the Super Bowl first. This is the guy that they want talking to you on this defense. And I think that is noteworthy with L'Jarius Sneed now out in Tennessee.
All right. I want to talk about the new NFL rule for first downs really quickly. It sounds like there is a chance that we will be going away from the old stick and chains that we've been used to over the course of our existence as football fans, which is just hilarious that this multi-billion-dollar company that has games streaming on every platform ever because everybody wants a piece of them was using sticks and chains to determine their first downs. However, it looks like there is a optical tracking system that will be tested during the preseason, and if everything goes well, they will ratify a rule for 2024 and the regular season will continue. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they're just flat out doing this. Like, I just have a feeling that they're ready for it. Like, it just, how often do they just test something and they're like, we're good. Like, I genuinely think that this is something that we will see in effect in the regular season, a more accurate way to determine the first down marker. What are your thoughts, Matthew?
I think if it works as well as we hope it does, and I like it. If it's more accurate, if this isn't this isn't baseball. I don't need there to be some kind of human error element that we have to celebrate, because it's just like a judgment call. And this isn't other sports where everything has to be a judgment call. I understand there's still parts of this game that are going to be a judgment call, but when you have the ability to remove that and just make it finite, yes or no, please do it. And let's make it make sense. Now, I like that they are kind of rolling this out in the preseason. They're going to see how it goes and stuff like that because we don't really know. I'm sure they've been testing it behind the scenes for a long time, but we just got to make sure everything works okay. You got to make sure that you see it. There's no big gaps because you can't, if you're not going to have a chain gang out there at all, you can't have the chip mess up really at any point in time. It can never be much of an issue. So it's noteworthy. I like the concept.
Chain gang's still out there as a backup for what it's worth. And so they're still going to have,
and they're not using the microchip. It's an optical
detection thing. It's not like, you break the plane.
Boy, I saw that Toy Story broadcast, and I don't know about this.
See, that's what I'm getting ready to bring up. They keep trying to do stuff like this, and the NFL's broadcast partners that are far more concerned with making sure that they get information as quickly as possible, as accurately as possible, transitioning to graphics packages, things like that. They have been pouring money into creating as big and as best of an experience as possible. The NFL has a ton of money, and if they really wanted to fix this, they absolutely could. They put a chip in the ball. They could figure out ways to make the GPS location of everything a lot more detectable. They could provide that to all of us. That would be great, NFL. If you could just give all of that data to all the rest of us, I would love to have it. But it's one of those that they have not been concerned with it in the past. And there have not been so many egregious errors with spotting the football that they have not been able to rectify with review, that now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we definitely need a change. I fully expect that in the preseason, they are going to trot something out. And I fully expect that it's not going to be the best. It's not going to be the brightest. They are going to use this as a fact-finding mission. They're going to try and collect some data. They're going to try and put something together, and then they're going to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, we tried. We tried it in actual game data. We found a whole bunch. It's just like software. Anybody who's ever written code, anybody who's ever worked in a development cycle, you try something out, you find out what the bugs are, you go, you fix them, you try again, you go, you fix them, you try again until you get it right. The NFL is not going to use a small sample size of preseason games and then say, oh, that's good, and then trot it out for the regular season unless it's flawless. And who knows, maybe they've done that sort of, fly, fix, fly stuff all the time throughout the entire offseason here. Maybe they tried it a little bit and we just didn't see some of that data as a part of this. But as it stands right now, if this is the first implementation of it, it's the first time that they're going to have all of these players diving all over the place with obstructed footballs and trying to use optics to try and detect where the ball is and everything. I just don't see how it's going to work flawlessly enough for it to be implemented in 2024.
I think one of the reasons that they feel comfortable potentially making the switch during the regular season, going from the preseason, yes, it's a small sample size, but they also have data, I am sure, from the spring leagues. There's spring, I think the UFL, I believe, is using that technology, and that's allowing them to get some sampling on that as well. So I would imagine that they're able to get access to some of that data as well. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to tour Italy right after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
We are continuing our positional breakdowns of the Chiefs roster, but considering the fact that it's summer, we don't do it just regular. We decide to do it on a food scale, and Maddie Lane has crafted the perfect Italian food scale for this exercise. Matthew, please provide the update on how that scale is reflected.
What makes you think that we would only gauge the roster on the food scale in the offseason and not the regular season too?
Forget it. Go.
Okay, so the Italian food scale, everybody remembers the cheeseburger scale from last year, of course, but this year we are doing the Italian food scale. Top of the line, elite, the best is Garozzo's. Very, very, very good, almost elite, exceptional is Cascone's. Then we are going to have the yeah, that'll work tier, and that is going to be Olive Garden, because everybody, thank you. That is going to be Olive Garden because everybody can get it anywhere. It'll get you in through a pinch. And then finally we have Fuzz-Oli's. Nothing else.
I do appreciate how your descriptions of all these just slightly change every week too. It's like Olive Garden, you can get one anywhere. It's kind of like a street free agent. Like, I mean, it's just like, that's just kind of like, that was the vibe you were putting down there anyway. I will just let you know, I had lasagna last night, and it was incredible.
Garozzo's, Cascone's, Olive Garden.
It was homemade. So,
very good.
Delightful.
Delicious, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Did you make it?
I did not make it. My wife.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So it was good.
Just curious.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So, okay. Hey, Camp, where should we slot this in on the food scale?
Oh, well, my wife made it, so it's a Garozzo's.
Yeah. Okay,
I mean, it's just
not better. We didn't just set a new elite.
It was defensive end. Matthew, where do you put the defensive end position on the Italian food scale?
Okay. I like the strides that George Karlaftis has made. He's come a little bit. I think he's shown a little bit more. The one pass rush against the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC Championship game kind of was like the pinnacle. If he can do that consistently, George Karlaftis is going from just being like a really good defensive end to an exceptional pass rusher, right? And I think that would be huge for this team. I think across from him with Mike Dana, maybe you have FAU mixing in. I don't feel great about the other side. They're competent player with Dana, setting a safe floor. FAU, Felix, he's bringing in an upside, but we didn't see anything particularly promising last year. I don't know how much I want to buy in. Charles Omenihu is coming off of a pretty significant injury late in the year. I thought he was great for the Chiefs down the stretch, but that's a pretty big injury. So here you are, like, I want to say we're going to Cascones, but I don't know if I'm getting the full meal, right? Like, we're going to Cascones on a budget. And like, I don't know if that's the play. You might just have to call it Olive Garden. If you're going to Cascones, like, I don't know if I can buy everything I want there because I don't have the funds for it. If I don't have the horses to win this race, we might just have to go down to a lower tier. We might have to call it Olive Garden because of that injury to Omenihu and because we didn't get to see a ton from Felix last year to really feel like he's going to contribute a significant amount this season.
It is an Olive Garden for me, and it can go as high as a Garozos. And I know that is a big swing, but that's how many unknowns the Chiefs currently have in this defensive end room. They have a first-round draft pick that did not play last year. We have not heard much about him. We do not know where he stands. What we do know is he spent this offseason training with George Karlaftis, doing a lot of the same things that George Karlaftis has done to try and improve as a professional. We have seen George Karlaftis grow so much in his first 2 years that I am willing to say that it's not just the individual. It certainly is the individual. He's putting in a great performance. All hat tip to George there. But the coaching that he is receiving and the types of guys that he is reaching out to try and get better are really helping him. Felix continuing down that path with George will only help him get better. So it's an Olive Garden because on its face, George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, it's going to get them by. They've done this before. The real star of the show is Chris Jones. These are the guys that you want to win often enough in one-on-one situations to keep an offense honest. Where they can really trend upwards is if Charles Omenihu comes back from this injury, which is a very serious one and very difficult to come back with super explosion, or Felix Anudike-Uzomah turns into a first-round pass rusher. If we see him make that jump, now all of a sudden you turn this into a group that has some quick winning pass rushers, some guys that can stop the run, guys that are 3-down players, and guys that can kick inside in sub packages and still win. That checks every single box, and I'm not including Malik Herring, who's going to play, again, against the run. B.J. Thompson, we have no idea how he's going to develop. We've got Truman Jones is still on this roster. We'll see if he continues to be on this roster, but they really liked him last year as well, especially in the pre-draft process. There are a lot of bites at the apple for this team. I am not naive enough to think that they are just automatically going to get to that Garozos, but they have that potential to do so. They're going to check so many different boxes with so many different body types and guys that can all play together with Chris Jones. They're going to see one-on-ones. Now all of a sudden Felix turns up in sub packages, wins one-on-ones quickly, wins more often. This can be a Garozos because now all of a sudden you've got to pick your poison between Karlaftis, Omenihu, Jones, and another guy that can win quickly. It could get to that point.
I'm tempted to go with the Cascones, but I think I'm going to go with an Olive Garden with a 4.9 star review on their Google Maps page. I look at the totality of the room and I really like the sum of its parts. Like, I think this is a well-built room that fits the personality and the identity of this defense extremely well. There's unselfish players with great motors that are willing to do what it takes to help this team win football games. They move up and down the defensive line. They do the dirty work. They've got some guys that can rush the passer a little bit, have some juice. And yeah, there's some upside to a Felix Anudike-Uzomah. I don't know if there's any blue chip players in this group. Yes, I know there's players with some potential, but I still if Felix Anudike-Uzomah has a 5.5 sack season, I feel good, but it's not, I don't think he's a guy that's going to come in and elevate this group to new heights. I think he's just another one of these solid, sound rotational players that's going to fit in nicely and help this team win football games. So I like the sum of the parts really well. I think they fit perfectly. And I think during the home stretch, when Charles Omenihu is healthy, this is a group that you're excited about, that has some juice, that can do enough to rush the passer and will do, what it takes to earn the right to rush the passer on the early downs. But I'm not blown away by any individual player. And that's why I just kind of, it's a fine group that fits incredibly well, but they just don't have that true blue chip, top end, top shelf pass rusher for me personally, even though I really like the kind of players that they have in that room.
Well, and like, even to this point, like, yeah, they don't have that guy, but even to this point, I don't know if they have a player that even gives you that skill set, right? Like, they don't have a player that even shows the consistent ability to give you a blue chip level pass rush from time to time. And I think that's what they're missing. Like, that's why I go back. The pass rush that George Karlaftis had against the Ravens in the AFC Championship game, like, that was it. That was what you want. It was quick. It was decisive. It showed a little bit of bend. It was to the proper depth. Everything happened in the first 2 seconds of the play, but he doesn't do that consistently. And I don't know if he's ever going to have the physical traits to do so. Maybe he can build on that, and maybe it's there. And that was kind of like the coming out party. And this next year is another big step forward for him. But if not, he's still a very good player, like a very, very good player. But it's just, you don't have that guy. With Charles Omenihu working back from an injury, you don't know when he's going to return to his best form. And even still, he's kind of in the same mold. Yeah, every now and then he gives you this highlight reel, like this is almost a blue chip pass rusher level rep, but it's still just a rep here, a rep there. And that's not as a negative. These guys aren't getting paid $30 million per year to provide that, right? It's just, they don't have anybody that has that ability to quickly win as an edge pass rusher, especially with speed around the outside at a consistent rate. And I think that's what's holding them back as a unit, even more so than just individual skills.
And that's why I say it can go as high if Felix steps into that role as a first-round pass rusher. We've seen nothing to indicate that he will. Just that's the ceiling, because that's what they drafted him for. That's why we weren't concerned last year when it's like, hey, he didn't play very much. I'm concerned this year if he doesn't play very much. I'm very concerned this year because I think that indicates, oh no, he's not getting it. That's not happening. It's not the type of player that they want him to be is not developing. Guys that break out in year 3, even though he's young, guys that break out in year 3 don't traditionally, they just don't traditionally break out in year 3. It's very rare that a pass rusher takes that long to develop. There's a handful of guys that has happened to. So I am really targeting this year for that. My optimism is high for a player like that. However, again, we can get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games into the season, and if he's done nothing and he's playing not very well, then maybe it was just an Olive Garden all along.
I will say, Felix Anudike could retire tomorrow, and he's already better than the 36th best edge rusher or whatever that he was ranked by someone in their pre-draft process. I will just say that he could literally walk away from football today and he would already be better than that. So already beat that projection and prediction. Congratulations, Felix. Let's move on to the offensive tackle position. Matthew, what say you?
Oh man, this is a tricky one because this isn't a long-term projection. This isn't projected. This is not ranking what the outlook of this unit is going to be over the next 3 years, 4 years, the future of the state of this position. This is how I think they are going to play, how we think they are going to play going into this next year. And looking at it right now, the right tackle led the NFL in penalties last year. He had games where he got benched for a small stretch of a game because he couldn't stop committing penalties. That's not ideal. Now, I think he cleaned it up, and I don't think Jawaan Taylor's bad by any stretch. I actually think he is a pretty good tackle, but it's still not like a guarantee. It's not consistent. And on the other side, you have a second-year player drafted in the 3rd round who was not good enough to win the job last year. As a rookie, that's fine. That doesn't cast doubt on Wanya Morris, but he wasn't good enough last year, and we saw him get live reps, and it was a problem at times. And he's competing against Kingsley Suamataia, who is a rookie in the 2nd round. And so now we have these two guys that are manning on the left-hand side, along with Jawaan Taylor, a guy who led the league in penalties last year. This has got a Fazoli's. This has got to be a Fazoli's. You have to look at this room. You guys both just gave me eyes. Look, I don't understand. They have nobody that has played left tackle at a competent level in the NFL, and Jawaan Taylor led the NFL in penalties. This is like a clear-cut Fazoli's.
This is going to Olive Garden, ordering appetizers, and then forgetting your food. Like, that's what it is. Like, on its face, like, okay, yeah, Jawaan Taylor might be decent. Like, he might grow into this. And maybe he's going to clean some stuff up. Maybe Chris Collinsworth isn't going to try and make an example of him immediately in week 1 this year. Maybe we'll see some of these excuses that have been made for Jawaan Taylor disappear and they turn into the more consistent player. He had flashes of good play, but turn into a more consistent player. Yeah, literally just functional or functional right tackle there. But yeah, Maddie's right. Wanya Morris played in a small handful of games, did not look good, and continued to get worse as teams found tape on him. Hasn't had a great offseason. Andy Reid has called him out now multiple times in pressers throughout the course of this. He likes Kingsley. He thinks that Kingsley is going to grow into this, but as we have repeatedly stated, he's got a lot of room to grow. He is a project. He might win the job by default just by being slightly better and going, oh, well, we should give the rookie the reins because he's going to grow into the role eventually. I don't know how you can say with any sort of confidence that this is a good left tackles tandem in May. Again, we are in May. We can get to training camp. We can see them with pads on. We can see them in the preseason. It'll really change quickly because this really does hinge on the fact that they don't have a left tackle that they trust yet. It's why Donovan Smith keeps getting brought up on this podcast. It's why it's always there. If he looks good in preseason, if he looks good in training camp, I am willing to bump this up to a higher end Olive Garden to start because I still think he's going to have bumps and bruises and things like that. But as it stands right now, like you go there, you think that you're okay. Well, I know what I'm getting. I'm going to get what I'm getting. They forgot my food. Now this is a bad experience for me. That's where we sit in May.
I did admittedly scoff a little bit at the idea of a Fazoli's. And as I've listened and as I've thought more about it, I can at least understand the low tier take. I don't know. I think we saw enough out of Jawaan Taylor to believe that year 2 will be better. And I do think he got better as the season went on. And I do have some optimism. And I thought he played better down the stretch.
Okay, isolate him. What do you give him on the scale?
I'd probably give him an Olive Garden.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, that's where the pause does come in a little bit because I do think a Wanya Morris, Kingsley Suamataia, Matthew. We're gonna get there, and also Anudike,
not happening.
Anudike,
Felix Anudike-Uzomah.
Anyways, I feel like they will have one solid, capable option come out of that. I do. But I get the trepidation. I do have a question. If Donovan Smith was added to this room, what are we calling it? And that's the question I keep coming back to a little bit too, because Donovan Smith was fine last year. I don't know. It's probably an Olive Garden for me if Donovan Smith's back on the roster and you have a known commodity and you have a known floor. But again, I started thinking about that a little bit harder too. So I don't, Maddie, where would you put it if Donovan Smith's back?
It gets to Olive Garden. I mean, because again, I'm isolating these out into different, and if you just isolate them out and then you kind of sum it up at the end, right? Like Jawaan Taylor, I think right now going into the year is a very good Olive Garden. It's whatever your favorite meal at Olive Garden is. It gets cooked right, so he gets to be Olive Garden there. Donovan Smith is like, the lowest version of Olive Garden. It is maybe just getting the salad and the breadsticks, which like, yeah, you can get by on that, but like, does that really count? I don't know. So like, and so that probably brings it up to Olive Garden because then you also then get to have a good competition for swing tackle like that rounds the room up and pulls it to we can get by with this. But without Donovan Smith, I don't know how we can see Wanya Morris and say if Wanya Morris is the starter, which we have no idea who it's going to be right now. If he's the starter, I don't know how we can rate it as anything but a Fazoli's going into the year, right? I just don't know. We would just be saying, they're going to be better because we trust them, which is fine. We can trust Andy Heck and Andy Reid to get these guys to be better than they were last year. Entirely possible. But the point of this exercise is just to look at the roster right now, to look at the depth chart and say, like, where do we think they sit right now going into the year? And like, if there's still a 50-50 chance right now that Morris is your starting left tackle. And if that's the case, or even if it's a second round rookie starting at left tackle, I don't know if I feel great saying that Jawaan Taylor is so good that he brings them up into his tier of the Olive Garden by himself. And like, I think that's the issue.
So let's say, just because I kind of future casted a little bit by saying that the defensive end room is an Olive Garden and could get to a higher tier. So let's go down that exercise here. If I were to say that Jawaan Taylor played like he did his final year in Jacksonville, what kind of player is that? Is that a Cascones level player? You're willing to call it that?
Yeah, I think you're slipping into Cascones level player.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's tough. It's tough because he is very I don't want to say limited, but he's definitely a pass protecting only tackle. Correct. So it's hard. It is hard to like lock in a hard Cascones. Like you're on the fringe there. I still think.
Yeah, I'm willing to give it that in Kansas City because who cares about the run game in Kansas City?
Fair.
Like, yeah. So, solid Cascones there. What does a Kingsley have to do to get to like an upper tier Olive Garden that would then kind of even out into a Cascones there? Does it just, hey, he has to show enough strides. He has to show that he can at least, play better. Does he have to play better than a Donovan Smith? I guess that's my question. Or can he just play equivalent to Donovan Smith?
I mean, like if he plays as good as Donovan Smith, I think you're looking at the whole room being an Olive Garden, right? Like if he plays at Donovan Smith level, you're looking at Olive Garden. If Jawaan Taylor elevates himself back to what he could, with the highest level potential, he plays at this Cascones level, which is just very good. Not elite, but very, very good. And Kingsley comes in and plays better than Donovan Smith, maybe you can have that conversation that you can get the whole thing up to Cascones. That's a second round rookie left tackle and also asking for a jump out of a guy that, had some definite issues last year. It's possible, but.
Sure. No, I'm with you. I think the room could get to a Cascones by the end of the year. Now, it could also be in Hades, worse than Fazoli's. Like it could be if Jawaan Taylor is worse than last year and we're seeing a year full of Kingsley wasn't great, let's try Wanye, that didn't work out. Like that is the worst case scenario. Now they'll be fine, the offense will be fine because they've got a good interior offensive line and they'll just lean and they'll move stuff around. Like It's not catastrophic, but the offensive tackle position could be much worse than last year still. Like it really could get to that level of bad. So this one has one of the widest ranges of outcomes just because there's so many unknowns, not just with the young players, but also with Jawaan Taylor after last year.
I think I feel a little bit more comfortable with Jawaan in year 2. And I think my struggle is I don't know if this tackle room is going to be detrimental to this offense. And maybe that's just because the rest of the sum of the parts, right? Like this team has always been so good about as a unit being collectively very good. And this is why this exercise is good, is just to truly look at the talent and capabilities of these positions in a vacuum. And so that's something I have been, I'm struggling with a little bit. I don't know if I ever actually gave an answer. I think I'm going Fazoli's. I don't know if I ever actually gave an answer. Before we get out of here, Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes on First Things First about the behind the back pass. Coach Reid wants me to throw it more than anyone in the world. He deliberately puts it in place for when I have the opportunity to throw it. It's not a coaching thing. One of these games, we got to do it. So Andy's trying to get Mahomes to throw a pass behind the back. I can't wait to see him do it in a game. We'll talk about it on this show whenever that does happen. But for now, we're leaving. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.